Hey, you guys. So we're milking this for everything it's got because it's just so much going on. There is a conversation that I want you all to see in this comment section, and I think that it makes for a good little short, quick little video about why we need to delineate and why foundational Black Americans, doing this and identifying ourselves as the people who we are is not only not problematic, like everyone is saying, and racist and divisive, but actually it's the opposite. It's pro-black, it's anti-racist, it's anti-blackness, and you all are being anti-black by, the usual stereotypical anti-black, by saying that everyone in the world is able to do something that we're not able to do. One thing I want you to understand is that groups of people, ethnicities of people, they don't just exist in some Akashic record somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't know what an Akashic record is, the Akashic records are basically like they're thought to be this this strand of data that exists in the universe, all over in the multiverse, and it's basically like the answers to the universe. Like, you know, um, why a horse? Why a tree? Why life? Like, a lot of these things are just like, in a stream of data in the universe, and they're all like recorded, and we just have to tap into that data. So basically, this guy, he writes this comment. F.B.A. is not an ethnicity, it's a new term created by Dr. Claude Anderson and manipulated into an ideology by Tariq Nasheed. Also, you aren't using it to achieve any political or economic gain. He's disputing me saying those very things. It's strictly being used to adopt white supremacist points of view. So this guy who is coming to a black channel, that before I even identified as a foundational Black American, I was always black. You know what I'm saying? And I always talked about black issues. The first video that I made is "You Look Good for a Black Girl," and how um, people have said that to me. People have said that to a lot of other black women, especially if they're darker. And it's ridiculous. And you have to be mixed with something Caribbean, one of these other black people within the diaspora, maybe even Haitian, Ethiopian. You got to be mixed, Sudanese. You got to be mixed with something that people consider to be exotic or white or majestic. A regular black woman is not usually called majestic, or a black man. And all these other things. So it's like, you know, um, anyway, I responded and I was like, that's clearly an opinion rooted in supremacy and a disrespectful dismissal of us as a people. There's no way that we are the only people in the world who do not have an ethnicity. We are foundational Black Americans, and everything about us has always been politicized. Therefore, we must find our power in that politicization and fight for our right specific goals, seeing as we are the people who have ushered in the rights of almost everyone within this country, and even many who are living inside or outside of it. So he responds, my entire comment was rooted in fact, not opinion. The term F.B.A. was not a thing until the 2010s. There was already several terms to describe Black African people who went through chattel slavery and Jim Crow in this country. This made-up beef with immigrants is directly from the white supremacist playbook and does absolutely nothing to further the cause of reparations. It actually does the opposite, because we are a minority in a country that is historically against us. Now y'all want to be American so bad that you're forgetting where you started. That part is opinion. Well, I'm glad that he acknowledged that, because it's just funny, because number one, let's go up here. Black and African people. And I explain this in my text. But Black and African people encompasses all of the diaspora of Black people who have any affiliation with America. That is not us as a people who are foundational to this country. A Nigerian who comes to this country and becomes an African American or a Black American is not the same and does not have the same history, and likely, oftentimes will not, have the same respect for the history and for the culture of foundational Black Americans. But he will have respect oftentimes for his own culture. That's the difference, is that they have an ethnicity to go back to, not just a race. We only have a race, and you want to say that we want to be American so badly. You want to be African so badly. We are American. We have been in this country for half of a millennium. That means out of all of the races that we've been mixed with, out of all of the things that we've been through in this country, we are a whole nother people. And like I said, we have a genetic makeup that is totally different from any people who has ever existed on this earth. So you cannot sit here and say that we're the same when we were mixed with these people from all these different tribes. And if you acknowledge that Tyla is mixed, something I also mentioned in my text, if you acknowledge that Tyla is a colored woman, and that breaks down to she's mixed with Indian blood and a particular African tribe's blood and something else apparently as well, a whole bunch of stuff apparently, but it's three main things apparently, if I'm remembering correctly. That's why they consider themselves to be colored in South Africa, I'm fairly certain. So this is what we're talking about. And they considered themselves to be colored more recently than a lot of other ethnicities that have been established in history. Nobody's saying that they're not legitimate. And if they are, they're being shouted down because why? Because they're Black Americans who are foundational to this country. And apparently everything that we do and say is wrong, and everything that everybody else does and says is great. We just want to celebrate our culture, and you're sitting here getting an attitude, and you might even be, or at least you're purporting to be, a person of our culture, who might even be foundational to this country. I doubt it. But at the same time, I really don't doubt it because a lot of foundational Black Americans feel the way that this guy feels because they don't want, we're so used to not being divisive and not being like, being so happy-go-lucky, Hakuna Matata, and allowing everything to happen, that we allow everything to happen, including our enslavement, including gentrification in our communities to this day, including the mass incarceration of our people, which we can't help to a certain extent, but we could, fight against it instead of just being on board with it. But a lot of people are on board with it and working to support it. So, this is what I'm talking about. But anyway. Oh, and just to respond to this as well. Oh, okay, I already did. So anyway, I put you aren't slick. We were also not considered to be human, at least not fully, not too long ago. But that is false as well. Things that are legally recognized within this supremacist society don't have superiority over things that are also a part of reality. We are an ethnic group who cannot claim any other ethnicity that already exists. Therefore, we are left with identifying ourselves, as every other group of people has done throughout the world, even recently. Tyla and all of these other people are able to claim their background, and we're seen as divisive when we don't acknowledge it for valid reasons of our understanding of the title colored. But months later, when the conversation returns to why foundational returns, because they were already talking about us and condemning us before Tyla, to why foundational Black Americans should not exist, then the same empathy and cultural understanding is not implemented. But the fact that you dictate to us that we cannot do so and identify ourselves as the people who we are disconnected from our roots, and completely mixed to a degree that we are a genetic makeup that has not existed before as a people. It's just par for the course of being a foundational Black American. The very fact that we have to distinguish ourselves in the modern day proves just how close we are to a time when we were considered three-fifths of a human being. And what I mean by that is we just got freedom. We just were considered human not too long ago. We just got our rights after getting alleged freedom not too long ago. So it's like at the end of the day, you can't sit here and say that we can't be identifying ourselves within the past 100 years or so because we just got our fucking rights. We just got out of slavery. We just got out of being considered three-fifths of a human being, you dummy. The title's Black and African American because he brought those up as well. He was like, we already were called this, that, and the third, and now you all are just forgetting where you come from. The titles Black, African American are all-encompassing terms that can incorporate the entire diaspora of Black, a race, people. Still, they are able to claim that they are Caribbean American in ethnicity, for instance, when they are also African American, and this is on the census as well. You all love to pretend that foundational Black Americans are not faced with a distinct plight that should be understood, the remedies for which implemented by law. This leaves us as a people to the whims of the entire Black diaspora when immigrants are given preferential treatment in our society, as can be gleaned from the only Black both president and vice president of the United States of America who are first generation Americans and not foundationally Black, as their Blackness comes from outside of America. Uh, uh, Obama, his father being from, was it Kenya? I forget where he comes from. And then when it comes to the vice president, former vice president, um, Kamala, even though I've always heard that name pronounced Kamala in the Indian culture, and when Indian people talk about, that use that name to refer to their own, children and people and what have you, you can go back to the Matrix. I'm just mentioning that because people always talk about this. Oh, you're not saying her name correctly, so you must be racist or misogynist or anti-black, all these other things. And it's like, no, it just makes sense, not only phonetically in the English and just overall in the Western and overall in language in general. Phonetically, that's how you spell a name or sound out a name like um, what she goes by, Kamala. That would usually be with two M's, but Kamala, what do you call it, would be one M, Kamala. That would be one M. And if you look at the Matrix, not that this is the be all end all for Indian culture, but if you look at the Matrix, one of the programs in the train station in the second movie who was waiting with Neo, the wife, her name was Kamala. So anyway, but I mentioned that because, Kamala, what do you call it? Uh, her people come from the Blackness in her lineage. It comes from her father, who is Jamaican, and Jamaica is, unlike what most people would like to believe, Jamaica is not an American territory. It's a British territory. Many of our politicians share the same demographical backstory. Black immigrants are given benefits when entering this country that are not given to foundational Black Americans, such as loans, tax write-offs, and capital. So this is real tangible stuff. This is the stuff that people don't want to talk about. This is why the people who deflect from this and talk about foundational Black Americans and all of this stuff, these people are usually of a certain caliber. They're usually certain types of people because they don't want to, or excuse me, what I mean to say is they usually don't want to speak about this particular aspect of the situation and the things that we're losing. And the most that they will say is a denial of reparations and how this has anything to do with securing our reparations, because the only time that they will ever consider a valid conversation about what would or wouldn't get reparations is when it's something that they feel that they can automatically say won't get reparations. Oh, that won't get you reparations. You shouldn't be doing that. But then they also tell you not to fight for reparations and that it's useless because they're not owed. So it's just like, it's ridiculous. It's a person who wants to see you fail. It's the type of person who just wants to see you fail no matter what, and everything you do is wrong no matter what. A lot of us have parents like that. A lot of us have family like that. A lot of us have friends like that who we thought were, true people. Just whatever. Co-workers, colleagues. Black immigrants are given all of these things, loans, tax write-offs, capital. When they enter this country, they have a better chance at getting these things, and they're automatically given a lot of these things because they're starting off in a new country. We're not given that benefit because we've never been paid out for anything that we were supposed to be paid out for. And because they got away with doing that, they're not wanting to acknowledge the links between, what we go through now and slavery and all this other stuff and Jim Crow. They don't want to give us reparations. They want to say, oh, okay, well, it doesn't affect you. Because of the things that they write the rules of the game, and they move the goalposts where they want it to be. There are many different reasons that we as foundational Black people in this country for generations upon generations are in need of delineating and identifying ourselves as a people. If you knew anything about the whitewashing of our culture, history, and people, and I know this person does, if this is a person, then you wouldn't make silly and colonizer statements like those that you have made. What's directly from supremacist playbooks is the need to conflate any delineation and distinguishment by foundational Black Americans as divisive and racist. They did the same thing when we said that Black lives matter, and you know this. You all see that there's a reason for delineation both politically and economically, but you just don't want to acknowledge it because you would rather play their game. We see you, not like us. And I want to focus on this and close out with this Black Lives Matter bit. Actually, I'm going to close out with D.L. Hughley. Every time that we say Black Lives Matter, every time we say anything about the betterment of our people in the face of a clearly, obviously, well-known racist society that is anti-Black specifically. We say Black power, we say I'm Black and I'm proud. They say, oh, you all are staging a coup and a rebellion. We need to bomb your neighborhoods. We need to start COINTELPRO so that we can infiltrate your community and lock people up for trying to uplift the community and what have you, fighting against your own oppression. We say Black Lives Matter, and they say, no, they don't. Specifically, or initially, they said all lives matter because they couldn't just come out immediately and say, no, they don't. And then we eventually got to the point where it was like it was open season for people to say that they don't and people to prove that they don't in other indirect ways, like Blue Lives Matter and putting out those signs and putting out that memorabilia. But you can't support Black Lives Matter. So somehow you're able to see how you're not saying that only cops matter in this entire world and everyone else's life is trash. You know you're not saying that. But somehow when we say Black Lives Matter, you don't see it the same way. Now it's become, programming. It's advertisement. It's commercial. They're using it in different, commercials and different movies and TV shows, and they're using it in different movements. So it's just ridiculous. The last thing that I wanted to end on is, so this is what I wanted to post as well. Oh, somebody liked it. Oh, she liked it. I wonder what that means. So this guy, D.L. Hughley, um, agreed with every word apparently that she said, and we're not surprised. And he mentioned her, and she's excited about it because obviously that's pretty big for her. Let me see where she's at right now. Obviously, that's pretty big for her because he's a very big, person in the community, despite the fact that he's a Kunitian. He's of Kunitian descent. But I responded to this with, okay, that makes absolute sense. You can always tell when people are excited to gain their things from coons. And then I also put, this is the same D.L. Hughley who disrespected Monique. We see it. And she liked that comment. So I don't know what that's supposed to mean because it's like, he disrespected Monique, but you over here excited that he posted you. And I was like, I'm kind of torn on that because on one hand, it's like, okay, well, I mean, if someone famous posts you, you're not really super concerned with like who it is, but you are at the same time. Because it's kind of like when AOC was getting all of the, even though she's a sellout, but when she was getting all of those, and that's why she was getting all of those Republican votes in New York, it clearly proved that, she was appealing to a lot of white supremacists, a lot of colonizers, a lot of Zionists, and what have you, who are okay with what's going on in Israel, because she's still not standing up against it. But it's just funny to me because it's just like at the end of the day, this says everything that we need to know. So does this panel of people over here. I don't know most of them except this guy. I've seen him a few times and he's pretty insightful, but the fact that he's on here with Roland Martin has me side-eyeing him. And I already was kind of pulling away from his content. But Roland Martin, oh my goodness. Are we serious? This is the guy who we're talking about, who we're taking cues from. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a specific type of black person and black affiliated person who is, drawn to this kind of content. And I will not lie. I was initially too. When I was younger and I was first getting into politics when I was in my teen years and I had an elementary understanding of politics, I understood, or I would be attracted to people like this, you know? And I was watching Roland Martin. But bit by bit, I started seeing that he was old and he was a sellout. Like Al Sharpton and a lot of other people who take these payouts and demand these payouts just to be able to speak to certain issues in certain capacities and to do certain things, and who continue to trash their own communities more than they trash the people who are working against these communities. We this Roland Martin and his crew are a group of people who they're the type of people who target black people more than the people who perpetuate anti-blackness and racism because it's easy. And because a lot of people can get on board with that, including our own people, because we know we like to hate ourselves more than anybody else to a certain extent, a lot of the time. So it's just crazy. I just wanted to bring that up. And again, I've never said anything negative about this woman whatsoever. I do not personally have a problem with her. Um, I won't say I don't have a problem with her, but I don't have a major problem with her. I do have a problem with her politics, but to a certain extent. But it is what it is. I don't think that it's obviously not to a level that sees me needing to bash this woman. So I don't have any negative wishes for this woman whatsoever, and I never did. Every video that I've made from the first one that's going viral right now has been respectful. Aside from the fact that which I don't think this was disrespectful, it was just a miss not a misnomer, but like just a mistake. I mistook her identity and didn't know that she was actually Native and not Asian. So yes, so I just want to leave it at that and take care.